Hello everybody and welcome back. My name is Winback, and on today's episode of RPG Radio, we're gonna get the crash course into Ultimate with our hardcore character, our Warlord Soulkeeper, the Oathkeeper soldier class you've always wanted to play. It probably isn't. Anyway, we're gonna be talking a little bit about what makes this build tick as it is right now, and a couple sacrifices that we've had to make along the way because the gear just was not willing to negotiate with me whatsoever. I had a plan for the build, and then the game decided to say, hey, you're stupid, you're gonna go this way instead. So we'll talk about that a little bit. And if you are new to this game in any way, shape, or form, this build and this video in particular may have a little bit to help you out in there in your beginning treks if you're going into Ultimate for the first time. If you're getting a character up to 80, 84, 82, whatever for the first time, I've got some tidbits for you. So stick around, let me know what you think at the end. Like, comment, subscribe your heart out. Do all those things that you know you want to do if you haven't done them already, and let's get into it. No, wait, I forgot. Before we get started, this is not an in-depth build video. Do not look at this video like you would any of the other videos on this channel. This is a chill, making it up as we go along kind of build guide video, and it's in hardcore. Nothing is dropping the way that I want it to. I have to get all the recipes all over again and basically start from scratch. So if you're looking for the same kind of content that's usually on this channel, I apologize, but yeah. Anyway, let's talk about Ultimate and what it means for the build that we're rocking currently. At this moment, well, at the end of Elite, when we got done with the game, as far as I wanted to get up to there, which was right around level 78, 79, where I felt like the XP just was not worth it, and I wasn't super interested in farming materials because the damage that this build was doing was too low. Now, all that being said, since it's a hardcore character, having high tanky stats is really important, but when you get into Ultimate, if you have high tanky stats but no damage, then your tanky stats really aren't going to be worth anything because you can still die very fast with your resistance penalties and all that stuff. So, what we opted to do instead is take a little bit of a detour on the abilities that we're using, or our signature abilities in this build, and unfortunately we had to move away from Vire's Might into Blade Arc. Now, Blade Arc is still a cool ability, still really interesting as far as this class is considered, but it's on a longer cooldown because we've opted for the knockdown and some extra damage to it. The reason that we're stopping the build right now is because I found some pretty wicked, sick boots. Turin's Step, especially the mythical version, is going to provide some points into Counter-Strike, and I think that was Retribution, Reprisal. Two abilities that are going to work pretty well on our class, still better than the boots that we are rocking right now, because these are going to give us resistance in everything that we're losing with our previous boots, as well as some extra poison and acid resistance, because we can just drop another anti-venom salve on there and bump that number up. You may have noticed that our reses are pretty low at the moment, and that is because, yet again, I don't have any gear in this build just yet. Luckily, since we're in Ultimate, mythical items are starting to drop, so we will be filling out slightly soon, but until we hit that level 94 gear spike that lets us really just equip everything, things are still going to be kind of picky and choosy when it comes to figuring out how we want to deal with the build. Really, when you're playing an Ultimate, especially if you're playing on hardcore or you're playing for the first time, you want to make sure that your build can do enough to let you progress. Progression is more important ultimately on your first go through than anything else can really be considered. hitting a couple of pauses in this game too. In this video, I was playing a lot of Diablo 3 the past couple weekends, and you can skip dialogue and text boxes with the spacebar. So there's a couple pauses because muscle memory is a bitch. Yeah, so anyway, progression, much more important in Ultimate when you have your first character going through it, because you want to have that first character at least somewhat easily farm the gear that you can find. You want to be looking for gear for not only the character you're playing, but you want to be looking for gear that you can put in a stash to transfer to other characters if you are thinking about diversifying. Now, obviously, if you're a one-trick pony, you only want to play one character, you're going to be okay, but again, you'll just have to take the advice here and build into what the game is giving you until the game decides to give you what you want, which I know is a little bit of a struggle for some people. Me personally, I hate it, but you know, you do what you got to do. This was supposed to be a Virus Might build, like I said in all the other videos, but it turned into a Blade Arc build at the last second here. We lost a bunch of tankiness, but we gained an absolute burst machine cannon in the Blade Arc ability. Right now, it's sitting at like 25 points, and Laceration sitting at 21. So it is absolutely chewing through lots of enemies in this game, and they are either dying instantaneously or bleeding out within a couple seconds afterwards. It's pretty easy to tell when you're... Or it's pretty easy to get those numbers seen when you're up against mobs of squishy little enemies like humans or skeletons or what have you. But hero monsters, hero enemies, you see them big ass health bars and you're like, oh damn, that thing is melting. I'm doing a lot of damage. Now, one really cool thing about this build that I found out is just actually insanely useful is that we can take one of the left-handed shields for the whole build. Even at the end of all things, when we get to level 94, our main hand weapon is still going to be the totally normal shield. And that is amazing because the totally normal shield provides +1 into all soldier skills and +1 into all Oathkeeper skills as well, and it turns out it's doing the most damage with all of the other weapons that I've been using considered. The only other thing I had kind of in contention with it was a monster infrequent that we got from Act 7, but even then, the stats on the totally normal shield are... they're doing much more passively for us than I think it's only like 1 to 2,000 damage difference. But when your ability is doing 68,000 damage, 1 to 2,000 really isn't that big of a deal. Blade Arc is doing right around 70,000 at maximum damage and like 58,000 at its minimum damage. And it just wasn't worth it to me to keep the other weapon on because totally normal shield is really easy to use, provides a bunch of other stats that we wanted, and I can find the upgraded version very, very easily by just simply opening the portal from the messenger, walking off the beaten path in Act 7, and picking the shield up out of the bucket. It's really helpful because it's always there. Same thing with the other shields that you can find in the game. It just so happens that totally normal shield is without a doubt the easiest one to pick up of all of the totally normal weapons. So yeah, if you take anything away from this build, if you want to play this build, that is one thing I would recommend highly. And above all else, you can't use the first one until you're level 50, and then the next one has a level requirement of 75, and then the final one has a level requirement of 94. So that you're gonna have to work around a little bit, but I would say that it's worth it. Just incredibly, incredibly good items for what we're working with here, especially since it adds, I think it's like 3 points into Blade Arc too. It's incredibly strong. Now, if it turns out that we get a whole bunch of new Vire's Might gear, the totally normal shield may get kicked to the curb, but as of right now, it is invaluable in how useful it is. So, all that being said, you can watch the other 3 videos if you need a breakdown on abilities or devotions or anything like that up to this point, but this video is going to be pretty short because this is kind of just a crash course into Ultimate. We're getting the early game stuff out of the way. Act 2 in the game, you'll remember, it provides a pretty significant XP boost for your character across all difficulties. This one feels exponentially higher in XP gain than Act 1 does, but that being said, by the next video, we'll have this character up to 94, we'll have the maximum gear possible, and hopefully we'll have some other good gear stuff farmed out. All of our resistances right now are not maxed out, they're not overmaxed, so we do still have a pretty kind of coin flippy chance to die in this sheboygan, you know? So there you have it. It's not going to be super perfect until the next video, and even then it's not going to be perfect. It's just going to be probably about as good as it's going to get in Ultimate. I do really love this build though, so I want to talk a little bit about how it works, how you move with it, and all of the nuance to it, because ultimately it's not something that you can do and just kind of sit and hope. I mean, if that makes sense. A lot of tanky builds, you just kind of sit still. You will use your abilities as they come off of cooldown, and you'll, you know, slam heals. You'll slam invulnerability abilities. You'll hit buttons to keep you alive. This one is more focused on doing bursty damage and doing a lot of moving around while you're working on that, which in and of itself is the whole reason that it's a fun build. Because Vire's Might is a point or it's a skill shot dash, unlike Blitz, which is a point and click dash. You will be able to line up paths for your Vire's Might to put down your burning carpets, and you need at least 1 point into that ability because it's going to activate a much more important ability, which is Bull Rush from your devotions. Because you have the fire carpet from Vire's Might, the volcanic stride activating Bull Rush so often, you're basically just a walking nuclear device of physical damage because of Bull Rush. And if you add on top of that your Blade Arc, you're doing extreme amounts of burst damage. It's really actually just fantastic how mobile you can be while also just radiating punch people in the face kind of energy, you know? Like, it's fantastic. All the little red explosions you've seen around the character, that's all Bull Rush. I've said it in a couple other videos so far, but it just happens all the time. Vire's Might makes it happen all the time. The only other ability I think could make better use of Bull Rush is Eye of Reckoning, and that's the spins, the whirlwind of Oathkeeper. I'm not super sure if that's even possible for Bull Rush, but I wouldn't see why it wouldn't be. Testing required. Not going to look at it now. Not super into it. I really do want to make a spin build, though. That's going to be next on the build list, I think, after the next lore videos come down. But anyway, obviously, Darius Cronley getting dunked on yet again. Super easy. Sadist down. And that's, I mean, that's really all there was to talk about in this video, guys. It's going to be short and sweet because Ultimate is only, you know, as much as Ultimate can be. And as the game progresses, it's going to be more interesting to watch. So come back next time. We'll be level 94. We'll have some newer gear, and we'll probably head into a key dungeon or some more difficult locations in the game. I also have some Lokar action to share with the channel as well, because playing one of my other builds, my Spellbinder, which was a pretty big video on this channel, that class, or that build, did actually pretty decently against low carb, and I was able to farm his whole set off of him because of my Spellbinder. So we'll probably have that going a little bit too. You'll see that in the mix. Yeah, so stay tuned. There's plenty coming up to the channel after we round out this hardcore build next week with our level 94 gear. But yeah, apart from that, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, whatever you do. It's probably New Year's soon. Totally. Well, have fun and peace out.